on behalf of CBI and our guest speakers, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on sustainable alternatives for home textile. My name is Meert van der Gaas and I am a program manager at CBI. Before we get started, let me just quickly run you through the GoToWebinar, which is a tool that we are currently using to host this session. It is a rather simple tool, but there's a few options that I would like to explain to you, which are of relevance. Kindly be informed, first of all, that we cannot hear or see you. So while you're very welcome to talk to us or wave to us, we really won't be able to hear, but that is not on purpose. However, we do really encourage you to pose questions throughout the whole session, and you can do so in the field questions, which is in your panel option. And you can also just introduce yourself by the chat, but if it's really specifically a question, use the question option. Also be informed that in the background, there's another CBI colleague of mine who's available to answer all of your questions. And this webinar is recorded and will be published on our website and YouTube channel afterwards. Finally, at the end of this webinar, we will ask if you can just complete a short survey so we can collect your feedback and even improve these webinars in the future even better. Perfect. So really, let's get into it. Over the next 1.5 hours, we will further delve into the home textile industry, looking at the industry moods, what are the main issues, focusing on sustainability, product life cycle, and of course, we will have plenty of tips, recommendations for you. As we really want to make this session interactive, again, we really encourage you to ask questions throughout the whole session. And of course, I am not here alone, as you can see, and it is therefore my pleasure to introduce you to our 4 wonderful speakers who really know the industry inside out. So welcome Irene, Kees, Remco, and David. So first of all, Remco and Kees, who are also part of the CBI market research team for home decoration and home textile, will really walk you through this whole session and share insights. We will hear from Irene Vermeulen, who is trainer at Circo and founder at Craft Curator, as well who's also a CBI business support coach, and she knows a lot about sustainable designs. And finally, but most certainly not least, David Shaw, who is a publisher of a few publications, and he does a lot of forecasting, consults with major international companies. So very happy to have you all here in this session. But before we, I'm going to give the floor to my guest speakers. I would like to just give you a little bit of a background of who CBI is by telling you what we do. So CBI is the Center for Sustainable Trade and Production. We are a Dutch government agency funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And what CBI does is we partner with SMEs and their ecosystem to strengthen their social and environmental sustainabilities. We do this by connecting SMEs in low and middle income countries to the European markets, and we focus on promoting and creating decent jobs for specifically women and youth, and contributing to inclusive economic growth. So the SMEs are really our starting point, and what we do is we offer practical solutions to eliminate bottlenecks experienced in the market or in the value chain. And in many cases, this can be, for example, the lack of access to good quality market information. So our approach is very simple. It's twofold. So first of all, we implement projects in our focus countries. And secondly, we provide market information on how to export your products and services to the European markets. CBI is active in 23 countries, mainly in Africa, and our work spans across different sectors, a lot in agriculture, but also in the service sector, including the home decoration and home textile sector. And as you can see here, we work with a lot of different partners, ranging from governments, export promotion agencies, sector associations. And over the years, we have really built an extensive network of international and local partners that we actively involve in our projects. All right, next slide. And then CBI implements projects in our focus countries, and we have on average around 40 projects running at any time. These can last from 4 to 6 years. And we have worked with more than 10,000 SMEs over, from 70 countries over all the different kind of years. And a lot of these projects focus on, let's say, aspects such as export marketing, matchmaking, product development, branding, certification, corporate social responsibility, and so on and so on. And as you can see here on the slide, we are currently also implementing 2 projects in the home decoration and home textile industry. So if you are interested for more information, make sure to check out our website. So again, for the sake of just the time, I'm just going to share a little bit regarding the market intelligence services that we have. So we have a lot of experience in developing high quality market reports on the European market, specifically for local SMEs and business support organizations. And these are market studies, market access requirements, studies, tips on how to find buyers, country, product spec sheets, and so on. And all these reports are free of charge and can be found on our website. And the best way is to really go to the website, which is www.cbi.eu. And I think now I will really would like to give the floor to Remco and Kees to really kickstart this webinar on the home textile industry.
Cool. Thank you so much, Mirte. This is Kees. Remco will pop in a little bit later. Let's kick off immediately with the first topics. What are we talking about anyway when we talk about home textiles? What are the major categories and product groups? Remco, could you help define?
Yes, sure. Well, let's start in the house. So it's home textiles. So you got your dining room. And when you're talking dining room, you're talking tablecloth, you're talking napkins, you're talking placemats and table runners. When you move to your drawing room, you have your cushions, throws, and the works, including, of course, curtains. Move to the bedroom, and you have your bedding and everything that comes with that. And that's the long or the short of it. There's a couple of more or less gray areas, which you could call, for instance, homeware. That is one thing. Sometimes it extends a little bit into accessories, but I think this is more or less what we're talking about here.
Cool. Okay, I'm sure most of you are doing one or more of these groups. So yeah, let's start off with the textile industry and the mood right now. David, what are you experiencing when you talk to the industry?
Well, first of all, hello everybody, and thank you CBI. You put up with me for many years. I'm always surprised you asked me back, and I want to tell everybody from the start that I'm really a bad boy, and I shouldn't be here at all. I've been dealing with sustainability since 1990, so that's over 30 years, and I've seen so many ups and downs. This is a heartbreak story, which takes moral strength every time it goes up and down. When we started in the 90s, everybody went mad. We had Ecover washing powder, everything was green, green cars, green everything, and we had a lot of great inspiration, people like Esprit going around the world trying to do the best. Then it collapsed because there was no system, nobody knew how to work it, etc., etc. Then it came back in the 2000s until we had the Lehman Brothers crisis, and of course it went straight down the drain. Then it came back in 2015, building. Then we had COVID, and the world was full of great green ideas, community, doing things better. We'd messed up the world, we'd learned our lesson, and what did we do? We got the first plane to Mallorca, hit the beach, and partied instead of changing the world. And now we're back in a very negative situation. What we're seeing at the moment is a pincer movement. We have in America a major problem, America turning away from its ESG commitments, a president who doesn't like windmills, and in Europe, we have a major problem of greenwashing. So if I look at the issues at the moment, we all know we're in an Anthropocene moment. The moral mood, everybody knows that the world is in trouble. But what are we doing about it? Not a lot. All our green parties in Europe, around the world, are painting themselves in a corner. All that support they had 10 years ago has disappeared. There's been about 1,500 government projects globally about what to do about this mess, but only about 160 have come to fruition. And then what we do is talk. I can't tell you in 35 years how many sustainable conferences I've been to, listened to, moderated to, talked at, and we're still in square one. And then we have this wonderful backwards and forwards, what I call firefighting. Oh yeah, diesel cars are bad, let's have electric, 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 and then we get electric, and then we don't know what to do with the batteries when we finish with them and where all the raw metals come in. And then we say solar power, solar power, solar power. In Holland, it's now so expensive to get rid of your excess energy, but it's not worth having solar power. And so it goes on, and the cost, you know, we need to have by 2030, X 100, we're going to be at 30% short in power, and we make all these meetings and congresses, and we're going to change the world, and then slowly, step by step, company after company backs up. So what do we do? Build bigger cruise ships.
Let me stop you there. Yeah, David, yeah, let me stop you there. Because it's like doom and gloom. I don't want everybody to run away.
Wait, let me finish.
Yeah,
all right.
finish.
We have to listen. Case, we need to take the facts, right? This is what the situation is at the moment, okay? So we have legislation, and I've always believed in legislation, and Europe has got fantastic legislation. The digital passport, sustainable design factors, all these kind of things are really the only way to tackle it and the way to go forward. But at the moment, it's money, because the companies don't have the money to introduce all these factors, etc., etc. So it's a very difficult time because of the money. The market is bad, so when the market is bad, people start concentrating on bottom lines rather than moral futures. They're thinking not about 5 years, they're thinking about how to make a profit this year. But here is the sunshine case.
Okay,
I believe fundamentally we've now hit the bottom of the textile downturn. We've had 2 years of mess, not just in my area of fashion, but also in the area of home textiles. You know, during COVID, everybody was building. Now they're going out of it. Now people are looking at their houses again, looking at clothing again. All the results coming in the market, even Nike doing better, Adidas plus 12%. So the market is looking more positive. And I believe also politically, like Holland today, D66, we were talking about it. I think we've hit the bottom of the right-wing movement. I think it's hit its bottom, that we're going to come back to more global thinking, more liberal thinking, which of course is much, much better for sustainability. And I think the new generation, Gen Z, their love of pre-loved, secondhand, repair culture, all this kind of thing, indicates for us a much better future. But sorry, Case, we've been through bad times. I've seen it for many years, and now we've got to stick at it. We've got to believe in it, but we've got to be patient, because we need money to go with sustainability. Cool. Because if we don't have the money, if people don't see the money, it doesn't work. And the biggest problem is building trust. Everybody has lost trust in sustainability, too much greenwashing. So it's up to us, like you, the CBI, to start getting to the consumer, educating them, and re-establishing trust in sustainability.
Cool. Thank you so much for that, David.
Is that positive enough to finish with?
Yeah, no, let's be realistic. So it's good that you just show us both sides of the issue, that we've gone through like very, very serious mood issues, but there's also hope. So Remco, you've been chatting a lot to some textile companies lately. What have you heard about how the position in the market is and whether they have money or not to innovate? What's your view?
Well, it depends. It really depends with whom you speak. Obviously, I agree with a lot that David says. On the brighter side, I also spoke with some larger companies, like bigger retail chains, who in their production really get into the chain. And they seem to have a much longer term vision. And what is lacking with a lot of companies, like David explains, this is a time of bottom lines. Other companies, they do manage to look beyond the horizon and start planning for 5 to 10 years. So I spoke with a French large retail chain, and what they basically do, they try to get as deep as possible into the chain as they can. And that means that they try, and when you're talking about textiles, They try to help their producers in managing, for instance, what water they use for the dyeing and what they do with this water afterwards. They try to create what they call closed loop systems, in which they ensure that the water they use, they can reuse it again for more production instead of throwing it back into the system. And they really have a long-term perspective in this. And also, as David said, we may have hit rock bottom here. It's time to change. And these companies, they do realize that, and they do want to stay in business, and they do want to ensure that they're going to be around in the next 10 to 20 years, and they prepare for that. Another positive example I would like to give is that in 2024 with CBI, we organized a big trade fair in Dhaka, and this trade fair was aimed at companies who have their offices in Bangladesh, because Bangladesh as a sourcing hub has really increased in importance. So a lot of big, for instance, retailers or buying houses, they have their offices in Dhaka. And many people came, like El Corte Inglés, like Zara Home, like Auchan, big retailers. They visited. And just before that fair, we were at Ambiente in Frankfurt. At Ambiente, we found that you can still get away, more or less, with not having certifications. Because, well, there's also a number of smaller buyers who sort of work around it. What we did find at our own event in Dhaka, Bangladesh, is that the first question that was asked by any of the visitors is, what kind of certifications do you have? And if you didn't possess any type of certification, they were like, I love your product range, but I cannot work with you unless you are properly certified. So in that sense, it does show that, yes, greenwashing is a large part of the market, but there's also a part of the market who try to ensure from day one that the producers they work with are properly certified.
Thank you, Remco. Okay. Thanks for that. David, back to you. You mentioned the new consumer, Gen Z. Who are they and how are they shopping?
I think the question is about consumer behavior, because there's two problems. To make sustainability work, we need to have what I call a social mentality, a community mentality. And I go back to Remco's comments. Yes, Remco, everybody's demanding certificates, but who's paying for the certificates? All these companies say, yeah, I want a certificate, I want this, but are they helping? But back to Gen Z, the whole thing is about consumption, because honestly, apart from legislation, which is going on, but it's being postponed, but going on, it's a moral thing that I want to buy less, because that is the key way to make this world more sustainable, is buying less. And I am seeing this generation, probably even more with Generation Alpha, the generation coming behind Gen Z. Gen Z, I'm talking about 20-year-olds to 33-year-olds, something like that kind of generation, the 20-somethings. But as I say, my daughter, a lot of people, they only buy second-hand. It's quite incredible what they're doing. And they really are looking at companies because they use internet. Unlike maybe not millennials, but certainly my generation, Xers and boomers, we are not trained to go through the internet, check out who is Remco, who is Case, what is the CBI. We just take it for given. These people go out, check it out. Traceability is part of their character. Whatever they buy, they trace it out. Is there a cheaper version, or they trace out history? So they are aware because it's their future. Right. I won't be here in 10 years, but they will. So of course they're much more conscious, and the buying power has changed. Very different.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, by the way, for all of you listening in, don't just listen in, just give us your feedback, give us your questions, remarks. We're very open to have a conversation with you. So use the question box specifically. We will check it every minute and we'll make sure you're part of the conversation. All right, so don't just listen, help us out in this discussion. Let's move on. Okay, so we already touched upon a few issues in the textile industry, and we would like to use the model today of life cycle thinking. And so what is a life cycle, and how can we use it to analyze the issues in textiles? But also, how can we find solutions in the textiles industry? So Irene, would you help me introducing what is the product life cycle anyway?
Yes, thank you, Kees. Hi, everyone. Let's move into the product life cycle. It's often visualized as a circle, as we strive to reduce waste and reuse materials. So on and on we go. So the circle really starts at 12 o'clock on top with the choice of materials. Research has pointed out that 80% of all environmental impact of a product is determined in the design phase. So this is you exporting SME, making choices in what materials to use, what processes to use, but also to look at how your end consumer is using your product and how they can cherish it, value it. So this means you can really make a difference by selecting materials and choosing production processes that are more sustainable. For example, choosing recycled materials, renewable materials, we'll go into that in a second. And the processing stage is also very important. And for textiles particularly, because wet processes like washing, dyeing can be very polluting. But there are ways to do this more sustainably and more cost effective too. So think of using different sources of heating or electricity. And please don't forget the people in your production process, especially if they make your products by hand, value their contribution. Take care of them, provide health and safety measures, and provide them with a good income and opportunities. The market also values this. Both social and environmental aspects are important in the market and for buyers. And the next phase in the circle is distribution. This is where products are packed and shipped and stored. And with your, as an SME, probably as an exporting SME, you collaborate with your buyer to define how your products are packed. And there's a lot of more sustainable options to choose from there as well. The next phase is that of consumption. So this is a little bit out of your, maybe out of sight as an exporting SME, but actually the most important phase, because this is where your end consumer decides to buy this, to pay money. We've just heard that the consumers in the market now are quite critical. They want to spend their money in a good way. They may not have very much money, so they want to make good choices. So this user experience is important. And for you as an SME, you can make sure in the design of your product that this product is cherished, valued, and used for a long time. Especially since the young generations, they're also very critical about products that can be repaired, products that can be resold, reused, and that last long. That brings us to the end of life, because at some stage in the life cycle of a product, people get either tired of it or it is damaged. So we want to make sure that this end of life is done in a proper way. So ideally, we put materials or products or parts back into the loop. So this is where we reach the top of the circle again. This is where we close the loop, hopefully to reuse materials and products again.
Cool, wonderful. So we're kind of identifying, let's say, 5 areas: materials and inputs, processing or manufacturing, distribution or transport, consumption, use of the product in the market, and then end of life or disposal. So Irene, I'm hearing a few things there. One, there's an environmental and social aspect, right, to sustainability. Okay, cool. So we're not just looking at the environmental impacts, but also, how are people treated across this life cycle as well. So the social also counts. And then where do you see SME exporters have most control in the cycle? Where is the control most direct?
I think in the design phase, where materials and processes are being selected, and a production source or production way is defined. But I would also urge SMEs to collaborate with their buyers in this stage very much, to make the decisions that fit the market, that fit the needs of that end consumer. You know, the user, they are the one in the end paying for your product, keeping it hopefully for a very long time, and to come back to your brand to buy again or to engage with you.
Cool. So you're saying even though you're, as an SME, you're not part of the consumption and you're not in the market, you're definitely collaborating with your buyers who are in the market. So keep that conversation, communication very tight, so that you in that way can also influence the use of your product in the market through your buyer. Okay, guys, I hope this is clear. This is the life cycle. We're going to use it for analyzing the situation in the textiles industry. Let's move on and use the question box to join in on the discussion, right? Okay, so we know the life cycle by now. Here we go. And let's start with the first segment, materials and inputs. David, Irene, Remco, what are the issues in terms of textiles, specifically related to sustainability when we're talking about materials?
I feel very strongly about this area. Recycling has been a major concentration point for a lot of companies. Okay. There have been some fantastic efforts, Renew Cell companies like this, a lot of technical development work in Switzerland, Australia about processing chemical fibers particularly. But one of the things that concerns me, and I think this is a global problem, it's particularly a problem for Africa and India, is how are we dealing with recycling? If I recycle wool and cashmere, it's beautiful because I can make money. Everybody wants to buy recycled cashmere yarns. I've got the moral story. I've got the luxury story. I've got perfection in my hands. But we know that 95%, the whole basis of Temu, Shein, Duo Ping is spun polyester. Now, what are we doing with all that spun polyester? Because I'm making a coat for $10. Can we recycle it? We know that only 2%, 3% of polyester is recycled. I know we're trying very, very hard, but the real problem is I don't make any money recycling polyester. So the recycling, and I keep coming back to this, I believe in the beauty of sustainability, but it has to work financially for everybody in the circle. So I think, Irene, I think this is a very important point, is how we're looking at recycling. I know a lot of technical progress is being made on that side of it. So I don't want to come into the relationship between the production system and the buyer, because that's very, very important in the trust factor. But I just want to concentrate on the recycling side. And of course, you're seeing the problems in Africa, the tragedy in Accra with the whole fire that destroyed the second-hand marketplace in West Africa. But good signs, like in Kenya, that they're sort of using it and they're having fashion shows and trying to really rethink what to do with these second-hand clothes which are shipped from everywhere, because we all know the quality level, we know the quality level is going down and down and down. So that's my concern. Vital, but we need to find out how to manage this in a more financially efficient way.
Yeah. And of course, money really comes into it. We're all business people. We do want to change the world, but also we need to make profits as well to continue our business also into the future. So very good point there. You mentioned polyester. Let's take it broader, synthetic fibers. What's wrong with synthetic fibers, people?
Well, the issue with synthetic fibers is that it's, well, I mean, there's a couple of issues, several issues with synthetic fibers. First of it, obviously, is that it's hard to recycle because there's so many different fibers which are synthetic. Then there's the issue of blends, because obviously when people want to buy cotton and the price is too high, they say, okay, throw in 20 or 30% polyester. And what happens then is that the whole recycling story becomes very hard, because it's very hard to recycle something which is a blend of different fibers. And basically, synthetic fibers are man-made fibers, and usually based upon crude oil as the ground material. So there you go, in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So,
luckily, in apparel, in fashion, as David mentions, there's been a huge increase of the use of man-made fibers, particularly polyester. But luckily, in home textiles, there is still a lot of appreciation for natural fibers. And I think the point Remco makes, blends are particularly hard to recycle, and they also don't have really the properties that consumers value in, for example, like bedding. So mono materials, choice of mono materials, and maybe even choosing natural materials can also provide a lot of advantages for exporters.
okay,
I
let's
think,
move on.
Irene, that's a very good point. You reminded me, because home textiles is not the same as fashion textiles, and there is a more appreciation in linen, cotton, and the rest of it than in my area. I would just like to say, Remco, that I used to be called the polyester kid when I first started in textiles, because it was great days with Dacron and Crimpline and all the rest of it. But I want to tell you about how you score, because we're going to talk about this later, end of life, how you score sustainability. Because there are very many systems about, 1 to 5, I get 5. And there's a whole pressure now saying that polyester is more sustainable than wool, if you count in irrigation, earth turnover, cycling, and all the rest of it. So it depends how you count your points, So it's all right. Everybody dismisses chemical fibers, synthetic fibers, as they have beauty, they have performance, they have comfort, they can bring you a lot of well-being, and they're everlasting. So I think we should be not quite so, oh, the bad boys are all a chemical fiber. They're not bad, they are trying, Lycra and all the rest of it, moving their market on. But, we need to understand it's a big picture, sustainability.
No, that's absolutely true. Yesterday we spoke with a producer of bags, and this company loves to use ballistic nylon because of its properties. So then we asked her, do you use a lot of recycled materials? She said, yes, we also do that because there's a large demand in the market. But, and her big but in this story was very simple. She said the energy it takes to recycle, sometimes I don't know if it's better to use virgin material or use recycled materials if you look at everything and when you do the calculation, when everything adds up. So in that sense, but I would say that all these issues, I would say, are also part of a transition, and we are in the middle of this transition, and the same applies to the use of electric cars, etc., etc. So in that sense, I'm not surprised that a lot of stuff does go wrong and is far from perfect. But you need to also stumble through this whole area of turning things around. And in this process, you obviously make a lot of mistakes. And this is my hope. This is not certainty, but I hope that a lot of the issues we're experiencing right now are also because of the fact that we are actually in this transitional period.
Yeah, cool.
I'd like to pick up on that, Remco, when we arrive at consumption, because I don't want to sort of do everything here at the beginning.
Coming to
Irene
that.
has to say, because I feel that's ooh.
Okay, coming to that then. Coming to consumption, let's look at the first section here, resources running out, planet unable to regenerate, non-renewable resources. We were talking about that. Some synthetic fibers or most are from fossil fuels, which are running out, and resources come from far. Again, that's not ideal always. Does anybody wants to make a comment on any of those four in the segments or the materials in general? Then we move on to production. Anything from your end?
I think like Remco, I think the world is an amazing place, because if we listen to forecasts at the end of the 20th century, overpopulation, there wouldn't be enough food and we'd all be starving by 2050 or something like that. But we're always finding solutions, whether it's genetic or whatever it is. And as Remco says, we are really in the teething stages of this whole, because it has to be a global pattern. And I think everybody's conscious that they have to do something. And the banks won't give you money unless you've got a green goal at the end of it. Chemical companies know that they have to clean their act up and be proper and act in the right way. And I think the natural fiber companies have to stop being so arrogant and so, you know, we're such goodies and we are clean for the world, and realize that they have problems in farming, arable farming, and enough food stock. I mean, look at the soya bean crisis, America versus China, Brazil cutting down trees because it can see it make money selling soya to China. So there's a whole, it's all goes together, Remco.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree. Yeah.
fair point. Okay. Shall we move on to manufacturing, processing, and what we can do in that area? Because this is also where most of our SMEs have grip, have control, how you manufacture, how you produce your products. Anybody who wants to make a statement there in that area?
Well, Irene also mentioned it, wet processing, the use of water. Where do you get your water? And after you get it, what do you do with it after you've used it for production? And the example I gave of closed loop systems, that could be a solution. By the time that you have gotten this water, and hopefully in a way that doesn't puts a burden on the system, how do you reuse it after you use it for your wet processing? So I think that is one of it's not only good for nature, but it's also efficient. If you do it properly, you ensure yourselves of a constant flow of the water you need, and you can, if you do it properly, save on money, because money, as David pointed out, is of course a very significant part of the whole equation. So yes, wet processing, especially when it comes to textiles, is an area to really look into.
Okay,
And don't forget the people in the process.
Okay,
So workers, but also communities benefiting from cleaner water or a better use of waste, but also the people using products. Consumers are also much more health conscious now. So, but in the production process, particularly health and safety, providing decent working conditions for people involved in processing is important. And buyers also are really focused on that. It may also be out of their sight sometimes, especially when production takes place in other countries. But increasingly, like Remco says, they're stepping also into the chain and trying to improve conditions there.
Cool, good one. Now I see one of those boxes there says low quality output, which basically is the decision you can make in manufacturing. Now, Irene, you just mentioned the fact that as a manufacturer, of course, you try to be very directly involved with your buyer. So what if your buyer is in the market where low quality is actually the main selling point, to get rid of it quickly and start a new cycle?
Well, low quality will never be the specification, That won't be the question. The question will be low price.
Yes.
So I would say try to really understand the market your customer is in. First of all, think about whether this is sustainable for you as a business to be involved in. But if you think that's a good market fit, then try to analyze why are these consumers making these decisions? Is there anything we can do differently? Do we have cost-effective options that are sustainable too? So it's, again, really trying to provide the type of value that your market needs, even if that question is about price.
Cool. Okay.
Can I add something, Case?
David.
I think the biggest problem in processing, and Irene, you have to help me here, because there's a much more construction in textiles and fashion than there is sewing, than there is in textile, or more meters. But wastage is the biggest problem in processing and costs. Waste material, waste making. And here I run into a major problem because SMEs are really up against it with the big teams that Remco talks about being heroic, going down to West Africa like Zara and all the rest of them, Decathlon, because they can afford to invest in AI and Industry 5.0, which is all about reducing waste, predicting sales, getting the whole thing. And I ran into a lot of trouble with CBI, your fashion brothers, because I said, this is ridiculous. These people, there's no point talking about 5.0. Have they got the money to invest in this type of technology, which enables you to really rationalize your production to make only what you need, not to overcook, overproduce, waste fabric, waste this, cutting systems and all the rest of it. So wastage is, I'm just worried that all the great things that Industry 5.0 is doing for the business and really reducing our wastage, which is vital to sustainability, is not available to the SMEs. And that's what worries me.
So
No,
technology,
I agree with that.
AI is a big issue in the whole, also on the production side. Remco, sorry? Yeah.
Well, yes, the point, what David points out is absolutely true. And what you see, there's a big gap coming there between those who can afford and those who cannot. The middle ground here is what I found with one big retailer is what they do. They work together with producers and help them develop. And this is not, it's not a given. Because one of the questions we have in our question box is from Sam Kumar. And he says he has an issue with his buyer who demands certification, but is not willing to help him. And certification, as he points out, yes, it costs a lot. So what you need actually this model of collaboration between the bigger buyers and those who produce for them. And the moment this is a healthy balance, then you have a working model. But it's not self-evident. Some do it, and there's still a lot of buyers who push, as David already pointed out, who really push the producers. I want this certification, but I'm not prepared to pay more. But at the other hand, you also see a lot of buyers who really assist their producers in obtaining the right certification and organizing their processes in such a way that they become more sustainable.
Yes, and also don't.
Okay, Irene?
Yeah, I totally agree, because I think collaboration is key. So ask your buyer for data if they have that. But increasingly, buyers will also be more data hungry for your information, as they need to also prepare for like digital product passports. So they will have to go into the chain more and collaborate with you to let you know what kind of information they need. So make use of that request also to really collaborate on improving your products, looking at the longer term, what investments do you need to make to keep this market or to work with these types of buyers. So also you can also be critical about what are you asking me and what is this for? Do you need this certification, or do you need the information behind it? So yeah, it's all about collaboration and finding a proper way of talking about this. It also concerns different levels. Some are very technical about production, about data in production, but it can also be like having good conversations about the market and where the market is going.
Cool. Okay. So
I think it's the organization, Irene. You know, people like CBI should spend their money on organization. You know, like we've all been to these places like India, hand block printing, hand loom weaving. We know what the conditions are. They're getting better all the time. The Indian government is busy doing 5G, but everybody in India will be on the internet. But somebody has to go there and organize it, not just a company, but like the CBI, a data center in that production area that works for everybody, helping them with this.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's come back to this. Let's come back to this point when we do a possible solution. It's a very valid point, I'm thinking. I want to jump to the area where we all want to go, which is the market and consumption. We have a few like red blocks here: too much and too fast consumption, misleading consumer communication, throwawayism. What can we as a panel say about the market and what's happening there in terms of textiles? Who wants to kick off?
Well, throwawaysm. There was another story. We were talking with a producer from the north of India who produces home textiles on a large scale, and he gave the big he pointed out a big difference between a French buyer he had, who said, "I'm buying this table runner and this table mats from you, and they need to be able to sustain 50 washes." At the other hand, he had an American buyer. And this American buyer pointed out, well, it's not required that it should be washed. Just put on the tag, spot clean only. Now, these two buyers, they really point out two ends of the spectrum. The French focusing on using your product for a relatively long time, whereas this American buyer, and I'm not trying to make a Europe-America story about this. It could have been the other way around too, but this American buyer was focusing on spot clean only because next week he wants to sell another table mat of the same brand.
Cool. Okay. This is where the connection actually happens to the one on the right here, low quality and throwawayism. That's quality. You can also define it by how many washes can this textile take. And if it's more washes, then the quality could be seen as higher, and limited, then yeah, you get the throwawaysm. So the connection is definitely there to how you produce and the quality you offer, and how it's what the market wants. David, well, how do you see consumption?
I talked about this issue of trust because it's a big word, and trust is the word at the moment that is in sustainability. And I actually know, and Remco is going to kill me, but I know manufacturers, retailers who take off labels or tags saying sustainable because it has a bad image with their customer. The customer doesn't believe it's really going that far. So what I think, we're looking at things the wrong way. I call it, I have a friend called Giuseppe Toni in Italy who's very keen on us. We are looking at this whole subject outside in, and we shouldn't. We should be looking at sustainability inside out. So we're starting at the wrong end. It's very obvious we look at the product and the surface and where we go, but we should look at the beginning, coming back to what Irene was talking about, digital passports, but it's going to be, traceability is going to become a fact, not a wish. So combine the traceability inside, and the story starts on the inside, not the outside. Your story, the emotional quota of your product is in the inside of your product. So you need to combine what I was talking about, DPP legislation facts about traceability with an emotional story. We talk about EQ now and CQ. Cultural quota is now just as important as emotional quota. So people, you need to tell your story. And this is what we need to use to win over the consumer. Consumers don't understand all this blah, 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 blah. They just see all these, they love a story. And if you've got a story, tell it.
Okay, so that's an interesting perspective from on the communication side. On the one hand, the consumer wants to know what they're buying, and so they need traceability for that. And we're often looking now at digital product passports to convey that meaning. On the other hand, they also want a reassurance from an emotional point of view. Is what I'm buying worthwhile buying?
I buy a product because I love it. And part of the loving it is, you know, that's the emotional part. And we forget that all the time, just legislation.
Good one. So it's not just technical communication, it's also on the emotional side. We're coming back to this in a minute.
SMEs are 1,000 miles ahead of big corporations in telling stories.
Yeah.
Okay. Exactly.
But that's another reason that the bigger buyers also want to work with these SMEs in order to integrate that into their marketing. But I think Kees will be coming to that shortly.
Cool. Okay. Anything on the market side before we move to end of life, which we have in a way have already tackled? Preparing
one thing I would like to add is the communication. Why can't somebody agree? Because this is typical. We don't agree on a system of scoring sustainability and presenting that score to the consumer. Yeah. And it's just all different labeling. I've got an architect, I've got this, and nobody knows what the heck's going on. If you just had a 1 to 5 sustainable value, this product has a 5, this product has a 2, then I can make an instant judgment. I think it's a question of simplification.
Part of the transition as well, yes, to agree on that, yeah.
Yeah, cool. It's interesting, Because as a consumer, of course, you need a very simple way of understanding how sustainable is this product. And that's what David means by scoring. Give it 5 or give it 3 or give it 1.
Well, and that would help you with the trust issue that David is referring to, because now it's amazing how many labels there are. And for the average consumer, it's very hard to determine, is this a good label or a fake label or whatever kind of label is this. Exactly. If you would have a very simple system, 1 to 5, that would definitely help.
Who is custodians? Who is guarding the guardians? Who is judging? Who's giving the scores? That's the next thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have an extra point on consumption, end of life. I think for SMEs, it's useful to realize that your buyers, your customers, they're looking at these consumption patterns. They're looking at, hey, why aren't people buying? Why are they using buying secondhand? Why are they throwing away things so easily? So this is really something that your buyer will be studying. Your buyer is also looking at who's making money out of my product after I've sold it. So a lot of bigger chains, they also set up reselling, repairing. So that's also something to consider. And don't just see it as a threat. It's also another way of looking at the market. So again, I think looking at your end consumer and what motivates them is important here.
Cool. And David already made that point of Gen Z and especially Alpha, the youngest group. They really value recycling and secondhand. So they already are in that modus, if you like. So
I like Irene. Sorry, just kidding. I find it interesting, not my area, but I'm reading a lot of articles in newspapers like the New York Times or the Guardian or Time magazine. I don't know. How many pairs of sheets do you need to buy in your life? How often should you wash your bed sheets? I mean, suddenly everybody's looking at these questions about how we are treating our textiles. You know, so I don't know how many towels and when shall I put it in the washing machine and what kind of towel. I find this very interesting now, all this research going on about how you are using your products and what is the best way to use your products and how it's coming at a consumer level.
That's cool. And that's part of throwaway, isn't it? Maybe to avoid that is to know kind of how you use your products or how you can use them longer.
Okay, so when did you last...
Irene? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Another interesting point is that some bigger retailers now offer repair services. And in that whole process, they gradually find out sometimes how crappy their own products are. So they also feedback this into the system. So they actually now only realize at the end of the run that they need to improve their design. They need to work with their designers and also their producers to make something that lasts longer or is better or can be better repaired or whatever they want to.
Thanks. So again, the point of buyers and sellers in the market need to connect better to the manufacturers, to you SMEs, in order to make this loop work. And that's another example. Shall we move to the final segment, end of life? We've touched upon it already a little bit in terms of recycling and preparing for recycling. What I was hearing was, for instance, that mixed fibers or blends are difficult to recycle. So that was one of the things we mentioned. Also, David made the point of, do we actually know what is available and how big the waste issue actually is? What can we add to this, people, to finish the loop here, also in our discussion?
Well, I have a fundamental question to everybody, the cleverer people on the panel. What is more important, in your opinion, that a product is compostable or recyclable?
Okay.
Because I don't know. I look at, I don't know, you know, it's all right. How many times can you recycle it? You know, is it better just to bury it in the earth and like our bodies and our bones and nurture nature?
Well, we're discussing SMEs here. We're having this discussion for SMEs. And the reality is also very much logistical in recycling. I mean, we will have mountains of waste, of textile waste. We have all these technologies we're developing to separate better, but the actual recycling cannot easily take place in Europe. So in that sense, we have to look at other ways. And I guess the shortcut here is to say, okay, decomposing can be done anywhere. I think, yeah, there's bigger issues in recycling, and especially in the whole logistical.
But to make textiles compostable is not easy from a design perspective. Whereas, for instance, if you take a jute basket, which is 100% jute, obviously that's very easily compostable. So that is an added complexity for textiles.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, guys, are we ready to move on? Are there any questions about left that we haven't answered yet?
I have a lot of questions in the question box, but we do touch upon these subjects, and basically a lot of questions are about certification, the cost of certification. How do I get certification, especially if I don't have any money? We addressed that a little bit. Collaboration with your buyer is the best option here. The condition would obviously be that you need a buyer who is willing to go along with you on this journey. So that's very important. Technically, a lot of questions we have
Remco,
yeah.
talk about that problem about paying for certification. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot. I think we should deal with one question at a time. I want to talk about Italy.
Can I come back to that, because certification is a big topic later on. So let's come back to that. Let's first finish the cycle. Certification will be an issue later on, so people just hold on to your questions there, and also panelists, let's do the discussion later. Just an overview of issues here, a lot of red boxes in terms of sustainability in the textiles industry. Don't be discouraged. We're also going to discuss possible solutions and way to improve. But for now, we're also seeing that there are lots of sustainability issues in textiles. Let's face them and let's find meaningful solutions. So we touched upon the issue of relevance to you, because a lot of the issues and the market for sure is in Europe. And so does it mean that it has relevance to you at all if the issues are in Europe? The answers are simple. Most of the negative impacts happen in your part of the world. You are dealing with extraction of materials, with production, and lots of the pollution that takes place in textiles is your part of the world. So this is not about who is to blame, but it's about, if we look at which part of the world is being polluted by textiles, it's mostly your part, SME part of the world. So yes, there's a huge relevance to you to get to solutions. Also this one, most of the value of clothing and textiles is produced elsewhere and not in the EU. So that also means, yes, production takes place in your part of the world, and therefore it's also very much impacting your part of the world again. So again, lots of relevance to you. And then finally, you are working with supply chain partners, maybe in Europe. And so if they have a problem, which they clearly have, we're indicating that in this discussion, and if they have a problem, obviously it also becomes your problem to stay in the market, and they also need you for information and for new technologies and new materials. So because you are a supply chain partner with Europe, again, the relevance to you should be clear. So if this is there relevance to you, I would say yes. Let's move on. So I promised to not just talk about issues and problems, but let's find ways the SMEs can improve their sustainability. Let's do the life cycle again, panelists, and let's look at possible solutions for SMEs, or the ways that SMEs can contribute meaningfully. Can we do the segments again, starting maybe with materials and inputs? What can be done by SMEs in order to improve the situation from that point of view?
Well, it depends where you
Mono.
source. Obviously, there's
Can
all
you
kinds of.
repeat, please? Yeah.
Sorry.
Can you repeat? Because
Oh, sorry. No, it depends what you source and where you source it. So one of the things is sourcing close to home, so the chain becomes as short as possible. And then you come to what do you source? If you source a sustainable fiber, I mentioned jute, for instance, but you can also, for instance, go for certified bio cotton yarn if that is available at your end of the woods. That would also be an option, but you can also see what is available in your area in terms of recycled fibers, and then preferably recycled fibers that have a certificate, so you don't have to bother about that. That's the easiest way. Again, we're hitting upon the topic of certification, but the easiest way as a smaller producer to get any type of certification into your system is buying raw materials that have been officially certified according to an international standard. And that helps a lot because you don't have to do the certification yourself, but you are able to communicate the certification to your buyers. So that could be a couple of options.
cool, thank you. Irene, in the market, do you see the market welcoming alternative sustainable fibers at all in home textiles? Or is there a lack of demand also for alternative fibers?
I do see a lot of new innovations, technology, most of them still in early stage, so it's not that commonly available. There's also an issue that consumers, because of the complexity of this whole thing, is that they don't always know what to ask for. So also here, storytelling will help in telling the actual stories about these, the real stories about these materials and where they come from. We also have to educate even buyers and consumers in this. So yes, certification helps, but also you have to tell more about what considerations you've made about material choices. And then coming back to my earlier remark, mono is also a way of being more sustainable, making sure that you don't use any blends. And besides the raw materials, also think of the processes, like, is there a specific dye you're using or a specific finish, or if you have any applications or embroidery or prints or other types of embellishments. Think about what you can do to make better choices.
Cool. So David, if you look at the manufacturing side in textiles, including dyeing and everything, where can you see possible improvements in terms of social and environment?
I think, first of all, as an SME, you have two problems. First of all, you've got people like Remco flying over from Rotterdam and telling you what to do. And the other thing is building your own life. So looking around you, because if we look at the world today, it's been West going to the East to buy, but actually the East selling to the East is where the future really is. So it's looking at your material around that. And the second thing is not being on your own. Work as a group. Establish networks and chains within your area. Don't try to do it all on your own. As three of you together is better than one of you on your own. Team up, do your buying together, do your sourcing together, better price, better structure, better everything in the whole network. And the other thing is try and build the textile chain in your area. Don't start, I ship the fiber from me to China, then I'll make the garment and ship the garment from China to Rotterdam. Then Rotterdam, I'll ship it all so it's all about understanding. So first, make a team, work together, not on your own, and look at other markets apart from the established market. What do you want in your own area?
Cool, that's very valuable, David. So build your own chains, manufacturing chains at home, and not alone, huh? Irene?
Yeah, it's a good point, because collaboration, I've only talked about the buyer producer collaboration, but indeed in the chain locally, use networks, also work with institutions or designers or chemists or whoever to improve and also to gain knowledge on these issues. And sometimes maybe focusing also helps. Most of you will have some kind of expertise in your production process. Either it's like a hand loom, or it can be a type of printing. Try to identify the issues in that particular process that you excel in, and try to make it better, and focus on that, because that is really where your value is. And then again, bringing back the social aspect, also what is, look at your production process, the people involved, where is the expertise, how can you improve that, or how can you make that more efficient, or how can you make that more meaningful for people, in order to also have a more sustainable way of producing for the longer term.
Also from the
I have one important point to add, Case.
Yeah.
What we're seeing in Europe is also in China, in the silk industry in China, the new generation does not want to be part of our textile world. So it's a major problem. They're all deserting farm existence, local existence for cities. So we have to be sure that we are encouraging our successors in this business, especially in SMI business, because it's becoming a major problem. Where is the youth? Are they interested in this anymore, or do they just run off and work for Foxconn making telephones?
Cool.
So
How can we do that, David?
Sorry?
How can we actually make it interesting for the new generation to be part of the industry?
I think it has to be less paternalistic. It has to be more, the salaries have to be better, which is the first thing. And they have to see that there's a future. Our problem is that our business is an old-fashioned business. It doesn't look new to anybody. We're doing it in the same old way since medieval time, before Egyptian time. So we're not, if you look at what the competition is, it's huge. So I don't know how to solve that, but it's money, it's making it more attractive. I don't know, but there's a problem, huh? The next generation problem.
Okay, cool, good to hear. What else can we do in processing? I often hear textile dyeing should be improved to be much more sustainable. What can we do there, especially specifically in dyeing? CBI is going to do a major project in Bangladesh. What's the idea there? How can we improve dyeing in textiles if it's such a polluter, apparently?
Looking at.
Go ahead, Irene.
There's a lot of, listen, Case, if you see what's happened in the denim business in the last 20 years, it's amazing. The biggest problem has been water pollution, contaminating rivers and all the rest of it. Everybody now is looking at air dyeing, all these new systems of dyeing, but again, it's an investment problem.
Yeah.
It's very easy when you're in like Bangladesh, where there's a lot of water, to use water rather than highly expensive electric spraying and drumming and beating and air dynamics. I don't know, but the technology is there. The question is, can we afford it?
Yeah, okay, good point. So the technology could be there already, but is it, as you say, affordable? And maybe there should be systems there to finance new and cleaner systems in manufacturing places.
Yeah, I think there is a high-tech solution for better wastewater treatment, and also better dyes and other dye stuff. There's also constant innovation there. But we can also look at the low-tech, and there's also a lot of indigenous knowledge, dyeing practices that don't require that much water. So we should also look at those solutions that may already be out there, but we have overlooked. And I think this is also something that we can use to involve new generation in, is because I think younger generations, they value innovation. They would like to be involved in that. They would like to also be involved in sustainable solutions, in developing that. But at the same time, I also see young generations returning to traditional methods and reappreciating craftsmanship. So I think there's a lot of these topics that we can also develop further, help companies develop further, and engage other other generations, but also other peers and players in the value chain.
Remco, Irene, I have a
important
question.
point. Yeah, sorry.
Because
For time's sake,
can
I'm
you
jumping.
tell me what is the uptake in your area of alternative dyestuffs, tea, coffee, dandelions? What is the acceptance of using vegetal dyestuffs rather than our normal CBI, BASF, and all the rest of it?
Well, the story is very simple. It is all very acceptable as long as the price is not much higher, and the quality is also on a stable level. People don't want too much fluctuation in shade and quality. And actually, this is very interesting because what Irene was mentioning on indigenous techniques, etc. I think the next step should actually be that they make this chain more sophisticated, because the whole natural dyeing story is still about a couple of pots and a wooden fire. Yeah, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but if you make this whole chain more sophisticated and do it and try to industrialize it in a people-friendly manner, then I think you're talking a different story, because then the money is easier because you make it more efficient and your output is more constant in terms of quality, etc. So I would suggest that as a very important next step.
Yeah, and
then
find
it's
a
up to the next
suitable niche
generation.
markets,
Yeah.
because there is a type of consumer interested,
Yeah.
but they also have to gain understanding and knowledge, and they might also be willing to accept certain
Consistency.
properties of these materials, but if they know what they can expect. So storytelling here again is also very important.
Well, a storytelling, amazing. You know, I'm growing my flowers. It's all a lovely story.
Yeah. So, okay, we're already jumping to the market, which is good because for time's sake, we need to kind of finish the loop because there's still discussion about certification, which a lot of people are interested in. What else should happen in the market in terms of consumption? How should we create improvements, and how can SMEs be indirectly or directly involved in improvements in the market? Who would like to help me here?
Well, that
We can summarize saying stories.
Yeah. So
I think it's very
communication is a-
hard. It's very hard for an SMI to be involved in the interface of the marketplace in today's system.
Sure.
It's more, they need to concentrate on the relationship with their buyer.
Cool.
It's too early for SMIs, especially in new countries, to do B2C.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah,
But
then
they
you come to the
provide
point of
information.
partnering, eh?
It's
Partnering
C2C.
with your buyer. Yeah.
Partnership with your buyer, C2C, B2B, that's where they concentrate first, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, cool. So the partnership pops up all the time. Be open, communicate, and create that relationship, because in the end, the buyer will have the same problem that you have, or even more, because they are placing the product in the market, but they're fully dependent on you in terms of information and the quality of the products in the end. So good. Yeah. Anything else to close the loop?
I think one thing that I think governments and I think the EC should get these buyers to, they all come together and have a nice chat. And I'll tell you, lovely, I'm Hennis and Maritz and I'm doing this and we're all talking and all. But just get them together and say, listen, there's 126 certifiers out there. This is ridiculous. Can we rationalize certification and have an EEC certificate that is available across country, or a global even better? All this certification, cost, complication, ridiculous. That's their next responsibility. And that's not an SMI problem, that is the market problem.
Okay, we're jumping.
But David, aren't there 126,000 market niches that all need their own type of information?
I don't know, Irene. This could be a long conversation. Actually, distill everything, and we can't because Case is getting nervous because he's sweating.
Yeah, very nervous.
But we should follow this up. I think you can, but you don't.
No, we've landed at the certification. So let's find some pluses first, and then see what we can recommend to the SMEs about certification. Is it a good idea? Is it not a good idea? But what are the pluses? Anybody?
Well, it basically means that you've been certified according to a certain standard, which is understandable for people in the business, and they understand what your company is about. In order to arrive there, the important thing is that you organize your company properly, because certification is not an easy thing. It means you have to have an insight in all your processes, document them, and given, yeah, there you go. Learn about self-analysis, chain analysis.
Yeah. So once our experience, of course, with
I think it's a curse. I think certification started out with all the right things, as Remco says. It provides a proof and a judgment factor and a post-demand. But now, in the end, it's turned out to be a nightmare for all these companies. And getting your product certified and audited is a $5,000 job, and companies are looking, going, my God, this is just I can't afford. So I really think we need this certification. For me, is one of the core problems holding back sustainability.
Okay,
how it's organized, how it's rationalized, what it costs, why people. It's a major problem.
Okay, so that's a strong anti-statement. I think generally, though, we would like to. Discuss, are we recommending a certification anyway, and do we recommend a particular one or not? David, you're strong on the anti side, but that's also because we can't see the trees for the forest anymore, huh? For the forest for the trees.
I'm not against the principle, I'm against the application.
Yeah, exactly. I get that point. Okay,
but
so
We can recommend the one that fits.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, Irene takes it. From architects to blue circle. I don't know what you want to call FSR and what makes sustainable. My product's got 1 percentage of organic fiber. Is it organic or is it inorganic? I don't know. So please.
No, but I think choosing certification requires focus. Requires you study the market, understand your customer, understand their needs. So this also helps in deciding whether or not to go for certification. So I think you should never just do it because your buyer asks it, but you should really use it as a way to scrutinize what your market is, whether you need it, what do you want to focus on, what are the longer term advantages and opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes, and look beyond this one buyer, as you are saying, Irene, but at the same time, if you can partner up with somebody who will help you in obtaining this certification, because these stories are quite many, that an SME is assisted by their buying and obtaining the right certification for the buyer, and as such, at that moment also for the producer, and that helps you again in getting new buyers.
Yeah, good point. And what we have noticed through the years working with SMEs who do have certification is that they're already very able to be able to do self-analysis, where are the strong and weak points still in our chain. They know their chain much better. They learn about standard setting, so you know what you want to achieve. You're trying to work in a more planned way. You have quality management systems on board, because that's also what your certification offering requires. So from an internal management point of view, certification certainly helps. Also in terms of getting ready for the new regulations that will pop up sooner or later anyway. Yeah? So for the internal situation, I would say there can be no doubt that those who are certified already are one step ahead in terms of their internal management. Anything else in terms of this? Does it cost money?
It costs a lot of money and a lot of time,
Yeah.
and that's an important point. The money.
Okay, sure, yeah, sure.
Nobody and I don't give a damn. Everybody's about the bottom line. I don't know in your world, but in my world, it's cynical. every buyer is looking at his cent, his 2 cents, his 3 cents. And it might be very noble that some contribute to this problem, but most of them don't contribute a penny.
No.
Okay, thank you,
Real
David.
problem. And so they
No,
need,
but
they have to
he
go
has
to
a point.
banks.
Yeah.
They have to go to banks and they pay interest to the banks. So here, and one thing I would like to say, because I'm going to shut up after this, governments are not doing enough in local SMI countries. They need to step in, provide the finance, provide the regulation, saying to all these guys like Remco coming over from their KLM flight and say, I want this and that. This is how you want to behave if you want to do business in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And they need to lay down a standardization, a rationalization for how you operate in my country. And it's not there. You need to get in there.
Well, there's a valid point. At the other hand, what you, for instance, see in France, the moment your product is certified under a certain standard, you get a discount on the import duties. So there's a fantastic financial incentive. So I agree with your point, David. And if we do this in Asia and Africa, and we also do it at the receiving end in Europe, for instance, then you have something working together.
Okay, guys, let's finish certification. Is it a marketing tool? We were talking a lot about storytelling. Can this be part of your storytelling or not?
Absolutely.
It's a part of it, yes.
I think it's less than it used to be. It used to be the only part of storytelling. Now we don't trust anybody anymore, so it's less value in the whole story. And I believe you if you tell me a story, but I made my product in blue because I've got a lot of indigo plants in my garden, and that's much more interesting. About everything has a story to it. The wood has a story to it. The fiber has a story to it, where it came. That's because the consumer, we need imagination again.
Yeah.
But if you support your story with a relevant certification, it adds to the strength of it.
Yeah, you have to add context.
It's not the only thing anymore, Remco, because we've blown that one. We had it, we blew it, greenwashing and all the rest of it. It's not as strong as it used to be. Nobody trusts it anymore. I don't trust them.
Well, you mentioned storytelling, David. We have a fantastic story about a company called Airpack. Jorrit, could you switch me to presenter mode so I can show this movie? Fantastic. Show my screen. You see a big black screen now, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gonna start now.
Hi there, this is Adrian, and this is Michael. We are the two co-founders of Airpack, and we are very excited to have you watching today. We founded Airpack 1.5 years ago, and it was just a student project. Today, we are very excited because we are going to launch our backpack, and we hope that you will enjoy Airpack as much as we did developing it. Where it all started is also the origin of Airpack's charm and singularity, a scrapyard. Airpack is produced from old and rejected car materials, more precise, airbags, seat belts, and buckles. These materials are designed to perform in extreme situations, making Airpack a sustainable and quality backpack. Both the colored body and the white roll top are made from airbags. An old car's buckle serves as closing mechanism, and seat belts are reused for the straps and the back.
Hi there. We are proud to introduce you to our dedicated production partner in Timisoara. We are currently right at the heart of where your Airpack is being produced. Join us and we'll show you around.
Our European production partner guarantees us fair working conditions and excellent quality standards. During the development, we spent much time at our site designing the backpack and designing the production processes like washing, coloring, ironing, pattern drawing, cutting, branding, and assembly. Airpack finds a great balance between functionality and style, making it the ideal companion for urban adventures. The beauty about the design is is that it reflects in various ways the origin of the materials processed, giving each air pack its own unique touch. We offer them in yellow, black, blue, and red, with a different interior design for each color. The functionality of AirPack beautifully complements its design. The AirPack is a classical roll-top backpack, using an expandable seatbelt as closing strap. The inner compartments make AirPack ideal for daily use. It has one main and 4 separated compartments, including a padded one for laptop. A further, easy-to-reach zipper pocket is found hidden under the frontal seatbelt. The mountable reflector under the buckle provides extra safety in the dark. Both the straps and the back are padded to ensure comfort even when carrying bulky and heavy items. We at AirPack are fascinated by the charm and the singularity of upcycled products. Our goal is to share this fascination by offering products that convince ethically, ecologically, and aesthetically.
Okay.
Remco, I didn't see one certification certificate in that film.
Don't worry. We're talking about storytelling, and
Yeah.
David, you were telling us that in a good story should have those 2 aspects, like functionality and also emotion. Did this movie have any emotion in it for you?
What I liked about the movie, it made a very good point, but it's not enough to be worthy and sustainable in your choice. You have to make a product which is appealing in terms of aesthetics, fashion, the colors they use, and absolutely bringing you a benefit, performance orientated, making your life a pleasure, like safety with the reflector and the backpack and the computer. So it's not just, you've got to be sustainable, plus aesthetic, plus performance.
Cool. How is this movie for you?
Not anymore. Sustainable goes with a lot of things. Very good film. I liked it. And Generation Z, absolutely the spirit of this generation.
Cool. Yeah. Nice to hear that. Irene, how did it work for you? Did you find both emotion and functionality in it?
Yes, very much. And I think visual ways of storytelling are the best. Keep it compact, keep it simple, and make it visually appealing.
Cool. Yeah. What David also referred to is that this is kind of almost like the new generation as well. So they are young, a little bit playful. I mean, the story isn't very smooth. It's not like sophisticated at all. It's like the way they would tell their story. And that's maybe a big message to all of you there. Just do make your own story, your own tone of voice, with your own products.
Be real, yes.
Be real, be real, be real. That's what we
good
like
way
about
of making people pay more, because you need to pay more for this kind of product than, say, an industrial product. So with the emotion, you know, if I love you, I buy you flowers.
Cool.
So, you know, people are a bit more, it's very important.
Good point. Good point. Okay. We're at the end of the session. I think we've discussed most what we wanted to discuss. Is anybody, does anybody have burning questions?
Well, we got a couple of questions from our users,
Let's get
but I think most of them have been answered. A lot of them were about certification and the cost. We talked about that. One of the key insights here, I would say, that I take away from this session is that partnering is important and storytelling is important. And when you do your storytelling, you do it in a multi-layered way. Be real, stay close to yourself. And David, certification can be part of your story, but I agree with you, it shouldn't be the foundation only. Yeah.
Rational certification, useful certification.
Yes, absolutely.
Any closing advice from your end, David, to the SMEs? What would be your top 2 tips?
I cry because I see so many. I mean, I go to a show like Munich, Blue Zone, and I see some lovely companies from Pakistan to Africa, all there showing me post-consumer put together. I cry because it's really difficult at the moment, but you must not give up. And as I say, the pendulum is swinging from us to you, in 5 years, you'll be hosting this conference from Accra or from, I don't know, Bahrain, not from Amsterdam. So
Cool.
it's going your way. Please don't give up. It's tough, but I think the hard part is over. And next year, I'm much more optimistic about things and sustainability getting back on. It's been postponed. It will become back as a top issue.
Thank you, David. Of course, people, you should realize that David has also been playing devil's advocate a little bit today, as he says himself, bad boy. But that's really not how he is. But that's kind of what we find very useful, because we're not going to tell you rosy stories only. But we wanted to show you all sides of the issue, and yeah, to be critical and about things is also why you should be in business. So no rosy stories, and David very much took the side of being critical today, and that's helping us a lot. So David, thank you for that. Anything from you, Irene, as a final top 2 tips from you?
Yes, a good summary, I think, from Remco, and good comments from David. I agree totally. I think SMEs should speak up, show what they have to offer, realize that buyers really need you to understand the options, the possibilities. So talk to your buyer, talk to your community, to your peers. Don't see them as competitors only, also see them as collaborators. So I think, and then in terms of telling your story, speak out, be real, show the lovely products you make, your context, your reality, your community, and make that very, very visible.
Thank you so much. Okay, with that, I think we should finish. So yes, there are lots of issues in textiles, but yes, you can contribute meaningfully, and yes, look for the win-win, and one of the win-wins is possibly in this relationship with your buyer, and therefore your connection to the market. So always look for that. So we thank you so much for having joined us today. The session will be online soon on the CBI website, so if you still want to use it for colleagues who couldn't be here today, or for your any management sessions, you will find it there. And thanks again, David, Irene, and of course also Remco for helping us out on this. All right.
Thank you, Kees.
Yeah, bye-bye then.
Thanks, Kees.